Chosen one. Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is not ordinary. There are people out there who pretend they've moved on, act like they've forgotten you, and walk around with confidence on their faces, but deep inside their chest, your memory haunts them in ways they will never admit, because you didn't lose, you didn't chase, you didn't react. Instead, you delivered a checkmate crafted by Allah Himself, a checkmate born from your silence, your patience, your character, and your purity. And now the same people who once thought they could deceive you, manipulate you, or outsmart you are forced to replay every moment, rethink every action, and confront the truth that they were dealing with someone protected by the most merciful. And no matter how far they run, your presence remains a mirror to their soul, reminding them of what they did and what they lost. And today we will uncover exactly why they can never forget you, and why your victory wasn't just personal, it was divine. Chosen one. Understand this with absolute clarity. The moment you chose silence instead of reaction, dignity instead of drama, and restraint instead of proving yourself, you delivered a wound to their ego that words could never inflict, because your silence forced them to sit alone with their lies, their guilt, and their intentions without the distraction of conflict. And this is exactly why they can never forget you, not because you shouted, not because you exposed them, but because you refused to play the game they were hoping to drag you into. You walked away with grace while they remained tangled in the very deception they created, and the contrast between your truth and their falsehood became so blinding that Allah Himself allowed your silence to expose everything they tried to hide. Every time they remember how calm you were, how unfazed you appeared, how you chose peace over pettiness, it stings them on a level they cannot explain, because deep down they know only someone with inner strength, divine protection, and a clean heart could respond to betrayal with such self-control. And while they expected you to break, beg, or defend yourself, you simply stepped back. And that single step revealed the entire truth, proving your character while revealing theirs, leaving them haunted by the realization that your silence was not weakness, but a mirror reflecting everything they didn't want to see, everything they denied, and everything they now regret. Chosen one. The reason they can never forget you is because when they expected you to break, you elevated. When they expected you to react with anger, pain, or desperation, you surprised them by rising into a version of yourself they never imagined. And this rise haunts them because it proves they never truly understood your strength or the one who was guiding you. For they thought their betrayal, their silence, their games, or their absence would crush you, yet instead it became the very fire that refined you, purified you, and pushed you closer to Allah. Your transformation became a silent reminder that their attempt to wound you only opened doors to blessings they were never meant to witness, and while they were busy plotting, gossiping, or celebrating your downfall, you were busy healing, growing, learning, and strengthening your connection with your Lord. And that spiritual elevation is something they can never escape, because every time they see you thriving, glowing, smiling, or simply existing in a state of peace they tried to take from you, it exposes the fact that Allah raised you above the harm they intended. You didn't fight them, you didn't chase them, you didn't justify yourself, you simply rose. And that rise was so powerful, so unexpected, and so divinely timed that it became their greatest regret. For nothing terrifies those who wronged you more than watching you become stronger because of what they did, not weaker. And now your elevation is the reminder they carry in their chest the truth they cannot escape. You were never dependent on them. You were dependent on Allah, and that is why you rose. San, chosen one. One of the deepest reasons they can never forget you, no matter how hard they try to distract themselves, replace you, or pretend you never mattered, is because your presence exposed a version of them they had spent their entire life avoiding, running from, and burying under layers of ego, pride, and self-deception. You didn't expose them through confrontation or revenge. Rather, Allah allowed your sincerity to highlight their hypocrisy, your loyalty to reveal their selfishness, your purity to expose their corruption, and your intentions to uncover their hidden agendas. And this kind of exposure is far more painful than any argument or any consequence, because it forces a person to confront their own spiritual ugliness, something they worked so hard to hide from everyone, including themselves. When they saw how clean your heart was, they suddenly had to face how polluted theirs had become, and when they saw how genuine your intentions were, they were confronted with the reality of how manipulative theirs were. And this contrast, this divine mirror, is something they still cannot unsee, something that rises in their chest every time they hear your name or remember your presence. You acted with honesty when they acted with deceit. You showed compassion when they chose cruelty. You offered sincerity when they responded with games. And because of that, being in your presence felt like standing in front of a spiritual mirror, reflecting all the flaws they tried to ignore, all the wounds they refused to heal, and all the darkness they continued to justify. You didn't shame them verbally, your character did. And this is why they feel uncomfortable remembering how they treated you, because they can no longer hide behind lies or excuses to comfort themselves, as your existence proved that they had the capacity to be better but chose not to. And now their regret is not just about losing you. It is about realizing who they became around someone who only ever wanted good for them. And the truth is, some hearts cannot stand the reflection of their own faults, which is why they ran, why they attacked, why they mistreated you, not because you were wrong, but because deep down they knew you were right. And your presence made their conscience scream louder than they could handle. And now, even after distance, even after silence, even after pretending they've moved on, they carry the weight of that reflection inside them, unable to escape the truth you unknowingly revealed, because you showed them who they truly were, not who they pretended to be. And that kind of awakening, painful, raw, spiritual, is something that lingers forever. Chosen one. One of the most haunting reasons they can never erase your memory, no matter how much time passes, no matter how many distractions they pursue, or how loudly they try to convince themselves they have moved on, is because Allah endowed you with a strength they never anticipated, a strength that did not roar, did not demand attention, did not intimidate through force or anger, but revealed itself in the quiet, unshakable power of patience, dignity, composure, and a spiritual backbone so resilient it could only have been forged by divine hands, shaped through trials, tempered in silence, and polished by the fire of hardship that Allah allowed to enter your life. They misread your softness as weakness. They misinterpreted your mercy as naivety. They assumed your calmness was vulnerability, and they believed your humility was something they could exploit, manipulate, or dominate. Yet they never realized that every moment you bore injustice with quiet resolve was a moment Allah was fortifying your soul. Every tear you withheld was a prayer counted by the Most High. Every insult you endured in silence became a brick in the fortress of your heart. and every trial you faced without complaint became a proof of resilience they could never imitate. They never understood that your strength was not built on ego, on pride, on vengeance, or on human tactics, but on sujood, on nights spent in devotion, on trust in Allah when the world seemed to conspire against you, on unwavering adherence to your values when others around you were losing theirs, and on the refusal to let bitterness or resentment corrupt the heart Allah had purified and protected. And this is exactly what now haunts them. They unleashed their worst upon you, yet you rose with grace. They sought to break your spirit, yet you walked away with peace. They tested your limits, yet Allah expanded them. They attempted to provoke anger, yet you maintained composure, exposing the contrast between your spiritual resilience and their emotional instability, and that very contrast became evidence of a divine support system beyond their understanding or control, a force they could not compete with, comprehend, or overcome. The more you grew in patience, dignity, and trust in Allah, the more they realized that your strength was never yours alone, that it was a gift granted by the Most High through trials, betrayal, and hardship, activated at the exact moment they tried to undermine you, because Allah says in the Quran that He is with the patient, and through your life, they witnessed firsthand what it means to be guided, protected, and elevated by divine decree, and their hearts began to quiver in silent fear, because they understood that they were never contending with you alone. They were contending with the one who supports, the one who strengthens, the one who shields, and the one who reveals the truth of every heart. They saw you stand alone without faltering, walk away without stumbling, endure suffering without complaint, and rise higher with every challenge, glowing brighter with every trial. And that realization shattered their assumptions, terrified their pride, and left them reckoning with the fact that they were never dealing with a fragile soul, but with someone whose essence was held, protected, and elevated directly by Allah, someone whose inner fortress could not be breached by deception, malice, or cruelty, and that truth burns their ego in ways that nothing else could. Because your strength not only preserved you, it exposed them their pettiness, their weakness, their inability to act with integrity or resilience, and their failure to recognize the hand of Allah in guiding, protecting, and empowering you. And now, every thought of you, every memory, every recollection of the calm, dignified, unshakable way you walked through trials is a haunting reminder that they were powerless against the divine plan surrounding your life, that they underestimated a chosen one, and that no matter how much time passes, no matter how much they pretend, no matter how they distract themselves, your sacred, pure, and divinely backed strength is forever engraved on their soul, impossible to erase, impossible to diminish, and impossible to replace, because it was never worldly, it was heavenly, it was eternal, and it was guided by Allah Himself, leaving a mark that time cannot fade, distance cannot heal, pride cannot cover, and human effort cannot diminish. Chosen one, another reason they can never forget you, no matter how many people they meet, no matter how many distractions they chase, no matter how loudly they pretend to have moved on, is because you left an imprint on their soul that no one else can match, replicate, or even comprehend, and deep inside they know it. You didn't just enter their life, you reshaped it, shifted its energy, and illuminated spaces they thought were ordinary, because you came with sincerity in a world drowning in deceit, with purity in a world fueled by selfishness. with loyalty in a world that treats commitments like disposable trinkets, and with a heart that genuinely cared when most people around them only took, exploited, or manipulated. And this kind of authenticity is so rare that once someone experiences it, they spend their entire lives chasing shadows, mistaking imitation for reality, only to realize the void you once filled can never truly be replaced. You didn't just occupy their time, you elevated their understanding of love, trust, loyalty, and truth, showing them through your actions what it means to act with integrity, to forgive when forgiveness seemed impossible, to support when support was least deserved, and to uplift when no one else dared. And in doing so, you became more than just a presence. You became a mirror reflecting everything they had been too blind, too weak, or too arrogant to see in themselves. You forgave when they expected retaliation. You prayed for them when they refused to pray for themselves. You guided when they were lost yet ungrateful. You gave chances when they didn't even value the first. And you stood as a living example of what a heart aligned with Allah looks like, moves like, and perseveres like. And because of that, no one who comes after you can ever measure up to the standard you silently set, the peace you quietly brought, or the sense of divine stability that accompanied your presence. And that is what leaves them haunted, restless, and unsettled, because every new connection feels temporary, every new encounter feels hollow, and every new person reminds them of the depth, the patience, the understanding, and the unwavering light they once had and could no longer reach. And when they look back, when they try to explain the emptiness or the longing they feel, they realize that it wasn't just your presence they lost. It was a blessing from Allah, a mercy, a lesson, a mirror, and a spiritual touchstone that cannot be imitated or replaced. And even if they attempt to fill that void with distractions, wealth, or other relationships, the echoes of your authenticity, the quiet strength of your soul, and the divine nature of your guidance linger in ways that force them to face their own shortcomings, regrets, and the truth that they mistreated someone sent by Allah as a rare gift, someone whose impact was greater than they could ever quantify, someone whose absence now serves as a constant, undeniable reminder that losing a chosen one is not merely the loss of a person, it is the loss of a blessing, a spiritual anchor, and a divine reflection of what they could never fully appreciate. And that is why, even years later, even across time and distance, they carry the memory of your presence, the weight of your lessons, the haunting awareness of your value, and the undeniable truth that what they experienced in you was extraordinary, rare, and sacred, and no amount of pretending, moving on, or replacing can erase the indelible mark of someone who was guided, protected, and elevated by Allah, because a chosen one leaves more than memories. They leave a legacy in hearts, a standard in souls, and a void that only Allah's mercy can attempt to fill. Yet even that cannot replace the impact you made. Chosen one. One of the most powerful reasons they can never forget you, no matter how much time passes, no matter how much they distract themselves, no matter how many people try to replace your presence in their life, is because Allah Himself made sure they witnessed, felt, and carried the weight of the consequences of losing someone as divinely chosen as you. They mistook your kindness for weakness, your patience for passivity, your loyalty for dependency, and your love for something they could exploit. And in doing so, they failed to recognize that what they were dealing with was not just a human being, but a servant of Allah, a soul purified, elevated, and protected by the Most High, and the moment they misused your presence, neglected your value, or betrayed your trust, Allah quietly began to rearrange the universe to show them what it truly means to lose someone they can never replace. It started subtly at first. Opportunities that once seemed easy slipped from their grasp. People they once manipulated no longer responded as they expected, and situations they took for granted began to reflect their own choices and flaws, until slowly, with the precision of divine justice, they began to feel a gnawing emptiness in the very places you had once filled so effortlessly with your sincerity, wisdom, and light. And in that emptiness, they started to recognize that you had never been ordinary, that your presence had been a shield, a blessing, and a mercy. And now that it was gone, every lapse, every mistake, every selfish decision they made was amplified, because there was no longer a pure heart there to balance it, to challenge it, or to guide them. They see it in themselves, even if they refuse to admit it. The subtle ways life feels harder, the sudden absence of comfort in places they once found it naturally with you, the way their conscience pricks at them for things they ignored, the way their relationships fail to fill the spiritual void that your existence had protected. And every night, every quiet moment, every reflection reminds them that losing a chosen one is not just losing a person, it is losing divine protection, it is losing guidance, it is losing someone who carried blessings that Allah only gives to the hearts He purifies. They thought that by ignoring you, by dismissing you, by walking away from what Allah had orchestrated, they could escape the consequences of their own actions. But the Most Merciful never allows the hearts of the proud and the careless to remain untested, and slowly but unmistakably they were shown what it feels like to live without someone Allah Himself sent as a mirror, a reminder and a blessing, and in that absence, their world began to unravel in ways that they could not have predicted or controlled, because the universe itself reflects the presence of a chosen soul. And when that soul is removed, the balance shifts, opportunities disappear, doors close, clarity fades, and the ease they once felt in life becomes tension, frustration, and regret. And every attempt to replace you, to fill the emptiness, to move on, only reminds them that what Allah placed in their lives was never just ordinary. It was divine, it was rare, and it was irreplaceable. And now they live with the haunting knowledge that every mistake, every hardship, every lonely moment is directly tied to their inability to recognize your value when you were present. And this haunting is a mercy in disguise, because Allah is teaching them through experience what they refused to see in their pride and arrogance, that losing a chosen one is not just a lesson in absence, but a lesson in accountability, reflection, and realization that the hearts Allah chooses are unlike any other, and they carry within them light, guidance, and a presence that elevates the people around them in ways no one else can, and that elevation, once gone, cannot be replicated. And so, every time they think of you, every time they recall your kindness, your wisdom, your patience, your strength, your silence, and your elevation, they are forced to confront the truth. They lost someone blessed by Allah, someone who carried a mercy they could not recognize, someone whose absence now teaches them humility, regret, and the irreplaceable value of a chosen soul. And that is why they cannot forget you, because Allah ensured that their loss would leave a mark, not just on their mind, but on their soul, on their conscience, and on the very way they now move through life, understanding in ways they never could before, that losing a chosen one is not just a personal loss, it is a spiritual reckoning, a divine lesson, and a consequence they will carry for the rest of their days. And new wealth, new success, new distraction, no replacement can erase the echo of what they lost when they allowed the presence of a servant of Allah to slip through their hands. Chosen one, the most powerful reason they can never forget you, the reason your presence continues to haunt their hearts and minds, even when you are miles away, years removed, or seemingly silent, is because Allah allowed you to deliver a checkmate so precise, so flawless, and so divinely orchestrated that it required no anger, no confrontation, no manipulation, and no reaction at all. A checkmate that was achieved not through your hands, not through your words, not through your schemes, but purely through your integrity, your patience, your silence, your elevation, and the divine support that surrounded you at every step. They expected chaos, they expected retaliation, they expected weakness, they expected drama, but instead they were faced with something they could not anticipate, something they could not control, something they could not challenge. Your calm, your dignity, your unwavering faith, your connection with Allah, and the way every action you took, every step you made, and every moment you remained true to your heart, created a ripple effect that exposed their own intentions, revealed their flaws, and left them powerless to influence the outcome of the life you were building under divine guidance. They thought they were playing a game with you, that they could outmaneuver you, outwit you, or trap you, but they failed to realize that they were never in control, because Allah Himself was the one directing your path, orchestrating your rise, and exposing the truth of every heart around you. And the most devastating part for them is that they never saw it coming. They never understood it in real time. And even now, when they look back, they realize that the victory they imagined was always a mirage, because the actual victory was yours, quiet, unshakable, and eternal. Your silence became louder than their lies. Your patience became sharper than their attacks. Your elevation became brighter than their shadows. And your unwavering connection with Allah became the ultimate checkmate that they could not counter, could not understand, and could never erase, because it wasn't something human hands or human hearts could dismantle. And now, every time they recall moments of betrayal, moments of underestimation, moments when they tried to take advantage of your trust, they are reminded that no matter how hard they pushed, pulled, or schemed, Allah was always moving behind the scenes, always protecting, always elevating, and always positioning you in a way that required no fight, yet guaranteed victory. A victory so perfect that it humbles them even as they try to justify their actions, because they can see the outcomes, they can see your rise, and they can feel the consequences of their choices reverberate through their own lives. And that realization, that awareness, is a weight on their heart, a haunting echo in their mind, and a reminder that they were never dealing with an ordinary soul, but with someone chosen by Allah, someone elevated by divine decree, someone whose existence alone carried the power to expose, to heal, to protect, and to triumph without ever lifting a finger in anger or retaliation. And the more they reflect on it, the more they understand that their attempts to manipulate, deceive, or control you were always doomed to fail, not because you were stronger than them in worldly terms, but because your alignment with Allah made you untouchable, unshakable, and unstoppable. And that is what they cannot forget, the truth, that you didn't need to fight, didn't need to prove yourself, didn't need to lower your standards or compromise your integrity, and yet the outcome was devastatingly clear. You won, and they lost, not because of skill or strategy, but because Allah Himself was your shield, your guide, and your ally, orchestrating every detail to deliver a checkmate that they will replay in their minds for the rest of their life. A checkmate that proves their actions against you were meaningless, a checkmate that leaves them powerless, regretful, and haunted, and a checkmate that will echo through time as a reminder that a chosen one, aligned with divine will, cannot be defeated by human deceit, human pride, or human malice, because when Allah fights for someone, the victory is silent, perfect, unassailable, and unforgettable. And that is exactly what you achieved, without moving a single piece, without uttering a single word of revenge, without striking a single blow, because the universe itself conspired with Allah's plan to show them, in every possible way, that the one they underestimated, mistreated, and disrespected was always destined to rise above them, surpass them, and leave a mark so indelible that their soul remembers it every day, every hour, every moment, whether they want to or not, and that is the eternal, divine checkmate that can never be erased. Chosen one. Understand this truth deeply. Every silence you held, every rise you achieved, every moment you stayed true to your heart was never wasted, never unnoticed, and never ordinary. It was divinely orchestrated by Allah, and now the people who doubted you, betrayed you, or tried to outsmart you are living in the shadow of what they lost, haunted by a checkmate they never saw coming. You didn't fight, you didn't retaliate, you didn't prove yourself. Allah did it for you. Your dignity, your patience, your strength, your integrity, and your unwavering connection with the Most Merciful became the instruments of a victory so perfect that it cannot be undone, replaced, or forgotten. And this is the power of being a chosen one. The world may test you, people may try to manipulate you, and challenges may rise against you, but no force on earth can erase the path Allah has written for you, the impact you leave on souls, or the lessons you are destined to teach through your life. So hold your head high, stay firm in faith, and never forget that your presence alone carries a power, a light, and a truth that will continue to echo in the hearts of those who could not match it. They will remember you, they will feel your absence, and they will carry the consequences of losing a soul blessed by Allah, and that is your ultimate victory.